Hey, what's up everyone? It's Jake. So today we're going to try and go over the fundamentals of a web page and demystify something that we all use every day. So whether or not you've heard of HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, we're going to cover these technologies at 1,000-foot level and then put them into action ourselves with a hands-on example. All right, so the two main web pages that we're going to be looking at is first, booking.com. The second is the New York Craigslist page, so newyork.craigslist.org, and both these links will be in the description. So before we do any deep dive, I just want to look at this page generally and kind of notice some of the things that I'm seeing. So the most obvious for me is a lot of this text and all this content, these pictures, but even beyond that is this is all kind of formatted or structured in a certain way. So first, we have this title here, subtitle, another subtitle here with even another child subtitle, all these columns and rows, and all this content on the page is kind of structured in a very certain way. The second thing that jumps out to me is the color. So we have this blue background, all these buttons are colored in a certain way. If you hover over them, they highlight. There's kind of these different design or stylistic aspects of this page. And the last one, this one's often kind of more abstract, but it really is what separates, something like a newspaper, for example, from a web page, because a newspaper has some colors and all these structures and titles, but this is interactive. So I can, click down here, I can change this county here for how many people I want. I can search for different cities, and this list gets populated. So there's a interactivity aspect of everything that's going on this page. So more simple terms, the three main things that I'm seeing is one, is content structured in a certain way. Two, this content has certain designs and styles to it to make it unique. So if I were to compare booking.com to this Craigslist page, this also has some structure, but not as much design. There's some colors, but it's all kind of pretty basic. It's not too much different than a Word document almost. And then the last thing that I see is action. So I have the ability to interact with this page. And to get more technical, these can be categorized into three different categories. So the first one is HTML, and that's basically what provides the structure for the content. It's not the content itself, but it kind of allows the content to kind of show itself and display itself on the screen in a certain structure. The second, CSS, is what allows us to do the styling. So it applies these colors and gives all these pages their unique look and allows them to have their own identity. The last is JavaScript, and that's basically what allows us to interact with the page. So we're able to click these buttons, increment different forms and whatnot, and it allows us to take this website beyond just something that we look at and something that we can have a two-way interaction with. So now that we have the basics down, we're going to look at each one of these with a hands-on example. And since Craigslist needed a little bit of help, there's really not much going on here. We're going to use this kind of as our hands-on example. So the main thing that I'm going to be using for this is Chrome Developer Tools. So this is something that's built into every Chrome browser. You all should have it, but I would recommend using Chrome to follow along with this example. Firefox and other browsers do have this capability, but it would be a lot easier following along if we're using the same tool. So how I'm going to access it is, let me right click. You'll see we'll have an inspect button here. And when I click that, a whole bunch of stuff pops up. And this is a very powerful tool. It's used a lot for development, but if you think about it, Chrome knows all the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that needs to run a page. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to run anything. And the Chrome DevTools basically just allows you to access a lot of that and manipulate it yourself. So don't worry too much about all the stuff that's shown up here. We're just going to take a really narrow approach and look at very specific things. So the first is we're going to look at some of the HTML. So as you can see, there's all this content here structured in a certain way. First thing I want to do is, I don't like the name Craigslist that much, so let me change that to something else, and let me change the content here. So I'm going to right click that, I'll inspect it, and as you can see, it brings me right to this title. And as I kind of move around on the screen, these are different HTML elements. They'll be highlighted on the screen for me. So you don't have to worry about what all these different things mean, but it kind of is an interactive example of where you can see how certain things are displayed. So you can see, you know, this block of text, these different rows within this column, and also this header. So I want to change this header, and what you can do is just double click into it. It'll kind of highlight the text for you. And I'm just going to change that, and instead of Craigslist, I'm going to make it Jake's List as the title. And I will type that in, and once I press enter, you'll see that actually will change on the page. So we changed some of the content, but like I said, HTML isn't just the content, it's mainly the structure of the page. So I want to add another structural item. So let's do the jobs, for example. So we have this list of jobs, and these are all basically like different rows, and I want to add a row of my own. So I want to add one at the end here. What I'm going to do is go to this last one, which is writing and editing, right click and inspect that. And as you'll see, we're kind of in another place within the DevTools HTML. So I'm not too worried about some of this stuff. So I'm going to close this arrow right here by clicking on it. I'll close this arrow by clicking on it. And now I want to add another element, HTML element, that's basically the exact same as writing and editing. So we can do that by being on this last element right here. We're going to right click it, and there's an option to duplicate the element. So we're going to click that. And if you can see, this added a new row. So now we have two writing and editing, but you know, we want this to be our own row that we just added. So we can do the same thing that we did for the title, where we change the name. I'll right click and inspect that. I can click this arrow to open it up a little bit, and now we can see the text content that actually shows up here. So let's do, instead of writing and editing, I'll do making YouTube videos. Change that text and hit enter. And as you can see, this populates on the page. So we were able to add our own HTML element here by manipulating the HTML of the page within the Chrome developer tools. So next, and this is probably the biggest need for Craigslist, is we're going to add some style to it. And we're going to do very simple style, and we're just going to change the background color. So I'm going to right click again on the page, and let's just inspect it from a bigger level. And as you can see, there's all these different things shown on the page. I'm going to go up to where it says body right here. I'm just going to click on that. Not going to do anything right now, just going to click on it. And what I want to do is for this entire body, and you can think of it just as a document body, which is, you know, all we're seeing here is the body of this web page, is I want to change the background color of it. The white's kind of boring, so let's switch it up. And what I'm going to do here is there's a styles tab right here. It should already be pre-selected for you, but after I click on it, I'm going to go to this first little block right here. And a lot of this may be confusing or new, but don't worry about everything that's going on around it. We'll just focus on this small little part. So right here is element style. So we want to change the style of this body element. So we'll do that. Let's click into it. And right here, we have a lot of different CSS options that we can choose from to manipulate the style. So what I want to do is change the background color. So I'm going to start typing. As you can see, some of them are auto-populating. We're gonna do background -color, hit enter. As you can see, we have all these different options popping up, and I'm gonna use the arrow keys on my keyboard to kind of go through some of these. And as you can see, as we go through them, different colors, we can see exactly what they look like. So we can find one that we want. I'm gonna do this dark sea green, and we're gonna hit enter on that. And as you can see, that basically changed the entire background of this page. And we can do even more too. Like for example, let's add a border to the page. So let's do border style. Actually, before we do that, we'll do border hyphen, let's do, let me make sure we're doing the right one here. Let's change the border width. And basically this is just how big do we want our border to be. I want it to be really noticeable, so I'm gonna make it thick. And then we'll jump in, we'll click into this again. We can add another option. Let's do the border style. And as you can see, as we cycle through these, I'm going through the arrow keys to cycle through them. We have different options. So I'll go with the dashed one, hit enter on that, and then I'll change the color of this one. So I'll do border -color. Again, we can cycle through these different colors, and we can pick one as well. So I'll go with the dark blue. Obviously not the best looking, but if we click this exit button and view this page as a whole, we can see this border on the outer edge of it. So it's not the best style that we added. I don't know if I'd say that we made Craigslist look necessarily better, but we added some color to it, and there's a lot more in-depth things we can do to make Craigslist look something more like booking.com. And now lastly is JavaScript. So again, this is what makes the page interactive and kind of adds actions to the page. And this one has a lot of depth to it, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, but what I'm going to do again is I'm just going to right click and inspect this page. Now previously we were looking at the HTML, but now within the Chrome developer tool itself, there's the ability to write code. So right here we're on elements, and we're going to switch this over to the console. Basically this allows you to write JavaScript, and I'm going to click this button here to clear the console. Basically just get rid of this message because I don't know what this is and I don't care about it. Click that, and now we have a clear one. So we're not going to go into exactly the fundamentals of JavaScript, but just know that it's something that allows for interactivity to take place, and we're going to do an example. So there's basically different commands that you can give it, and one simple one that you may see often actually when you're on sites is an alert. So we're going to trigger an alert of our own, and how we do that is we type in the word alert. Oops, I can spell. And then what it needs is it needs to pass some sort of argument option. Basically, when an alert pops up, what do we want it to say? So we're gonna open a parentheses. I'm gonna type the message. I'll do alert from Jake's list. And this has to be in quotes. Then I'm gonna close this parentheses. And now I have what my alert needs to say. And when I hit enter, you're gonna see that this code gets instantly ran. So hit enter, and now this pops up. It says alert from Jake's list. So you can imagine different scenarios where maybe you click on something and there's an error that happens, and an alert like this will get triggered and say that an error happened. So basically allows for a lot more sophisticated logic to take place on a web page. So hopefully with this hands-on example, you all were able to understand a little bit more of what's going on behind the web page and demystify some of this stuff. And I know that there's a lot of stuff in this tool that we're looking at, but at a foundational level, it's pretty simple and straightforward structure to understand. It's very similar to a Word document or even a newspaper. Obviously JavaScript has the ability to interact with it, but there's very basic building blocks that are used to create a web page. So hopefully this helped demystify some of that.